Welcome. You might be wondering, is my child ready for learning math now? Maybe you have a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, maybe even a 6-year-old at home. Probably if your child is 6 or 7 already, you already no, your kid's probably ready for some math. But if you have a little one, you might be wondering, am I supposed to be doing something other than just counting out loud with them? How do we emerge into having a really strong number sense? So if you're wondering if it's too soon, it's not too soon. You can start teaching math right away, but there is like a sensitive period when kids start to really become more ready for those abstract concepts in math.
That's right.
So welcome to the Power Hour, everyone. Let's chat about math.
Yeah, we're going to talk about math. We have, in the Montessori math curriculum, we start very young. Like that level 1, you're really giving that to a 2.5-year-old. Do you think that you start math even before the age of 2.5?
Well,
I mean, I guess conceptually but when do you feel like a child is really starting to think about math?
All right. Well, when they're very, very little, they're experiencing math sensorially. And so it's all through the senses. Math is just a way that we choose to understand our world around us. And so, yes, your child is sucking on those fingers and toes, and they're not necessarily counting them,
No.
but they are gaining a number sense and awareness of, quantity. So essentially, math is just about that quantity, and children start learning about it right away. But when we start actually giving them direct teaching lessons to help them further, take that knowledge of that there is quantity in the world, to being able to count and manipulate numbers, that usually doesn't happen for kids until they're at least 4. So that's kind of like 4.5 is like what we usually say, like between 4 and 5 is kind of that magic age when you might start to notice your child starting to become aware of more than just numbers, more than just like that there are a certain number of fingers on one hand, and up until that point, you're doing lots of modeling and counting for them. There are actually lots of things that you can do, as you mentioned, in our level 1, in our math curriculum. There's actually a lot of activities that you can be doing with your child in math. And we won't go over all of those today because we're really hyper-focused on just the big 3, and they're going to be the big 3 that you're going to want to either DIY at home or make sure that you have in preparation for this period when your child is going to become super interested in quantity. But I know that a lot of us are actually scared of teaching math.
Yes.
I hear this whenever I start a new session of primary teaching. The Montessori method to that age is 2 to 6-year-old age group. Even at the elementary age, people are scared of teaching their kids math.
Yeah, and it's difficult. I mean, as those of you who will follow along and do the great lessons and the great stories in the lower elementary years, one of those stories is about the development of math, and it is the last of the stories because it happened the latest in our development. It happened long after writing and long after art and long after so many other advents. Now, does that mean what does that mean? For me, it means it's hard. It took us a really long time
there's
as a society
there's
to
book
figure
right over
out
there.
how. Yeah,
Can you grab that?
Sure. History of Counting. This is a great book. So why is math hard for us? I think partly because it's actually just really hard for people to get their heads around in general. It's a real stretch for our brains. But that doesn't mean we can't learn it. Obviously, we can get really, really great at math. Did you want to talk about this book a little bit?
Yeah, this is actually a book that we use in our elementary curriculum. So in the Montessori elementary curriculum, we give what we call these great lessons. And the story of numbers is one of those great lessons. And this is a great book to go along with it. So if you're curious, David was talking about math being hard and this perception that we have as math is something difficult. And he's right. It is something that we as humans, and we talk about this in the course a lot, when we talk about the math curriculum, we as humans took a long time to figure out different systems for counting and calculating.
That's right.
So it is one of the later things that we develop, and it's not something that is a given, given our continued humanness, here on Earth. Like, it's not something we were all born with. We were all born with a sense of quantity and a burgeoning awareness of the understanding of time and the passage of time and the quantity of, like, you can just think about an ancient person in the natural world. Like, you're aware that during certain times of year, there's no apples on the tree. And that during other times of year, it's like full of apples and there's like lots. And you're aware when there's less than lots. And you're aware when there's just a paltry few. And you're aware like when they disappear. So the idea of quantity is with us. But the ability to count the exact number of apples is no guarantee that we're going to keep this among us as humans.
Yeah, because it's something we created.
We could lose it, so it's something that we do have to teach to our children intentionally. Yeah, it's not something that your child will just know how to do given no instruction. And so I think a lot of us are nervous about teaching it because it feels really, really important. We use math in our lives, maybe not advanced math, most of us, but like basic math skills are a necessity in the modern world, and we want our children to be very proficient in it. But a lot of us had bad math experiences as kids.
We were math misled, so to speak. Did you want me to take that back?
No, I was just going to put it behind us.
Ooh, nice. Go get a copy of this book, folks. That's absolutely right. So, kind of to summarize, we humans developed math fairly late. I mean, I can't remember the exact date, but the concepts of algebra are actually pretty recent if you think about the whole of human history and all the things we've invented, right? It's like from the 6th or 7th century, something like that, maybe 9th century. It's fairly recent compared to like writing and certainly compared to painting and art, right? This goes back tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. So math is pretty new. It's conceptually difficult for us.
Yeah.
We are really worried about giving our kids a good math education because we know it's important, but it's intimidating to us, and it can often be challenging to kids. And so that creates this like cycle of like panic for a lot of parents. And as you were saying, that cycle of panic, it kind of starts with how you yourself were taught math, which was probably not very good.
Yeah, not unless you were in a Montessori school or another school that used a very progressive, concrete way to teach math.
That's right.
I have to say, when I look in today's math classrooms in modern traditional schools, teachers are, and any math teacher in a public school will tell you, like, we are using concrete materials. We are like teaching these concepts in a hands-on way, at least in the elementary years. I mean, I know that they're doing it. So hats off to the teachers who are really working hard to make it concrete.
No shade thrown here.
No shade thrown here. We've been there teaching in public schools, and we know how hard teachers work. That being said, if you yourself didn't use the concrete manipulatives that your child's teacher is using in school with your kid, even if you're not homeschooling and your kid is in a school, like, you probably don't know what concrete materials they're using. And so it might feel unfamiliar. And just the idea of like, how do I make math concrete and easy for my child when I myself had such a bad experience? And what I remember from my early experience with Montessori math was it felt like play. And, there's a lot of just playing with materials, playing with beads and, playing with other manipulatives, little blocks and things, right? That's what I remember from my earliest years, even not as a math person. But when I transitioned into a public school when I was in the 4th grade, my math experience from then on up was full of anxiety. And I don't remember any manipulatives at all or any concrete form of math at all in my classes. I just remember sitting and having to complete another 50 problems
Yes,
every
that's what
single
I
night.
remember doing, times tables, doing worksheets, just continuing to like flow through it.
I would love to hear from you if you can comment and let us know how you were taught math as a child. Was
Yeah,
it
we have a
in
good
this-
crowd out there in both
do.
platforms. So, yeah, I'm sure there's some interesting stories. And if you had an awesome math experience, we'd love to know that as well. But yeah, for sure, I was kind of taught in the traditional way that kids were taught in the 80s, before the new math, which is actually much more like Montessori math in reality. But in the old school way, which was a lot of just like rote memorization, like memorizing the times tables and just get it. And you just have to remember that 4 times 3 is 12. And it's very different than helping the child to think the conceptual way, which is the 12 represents 12 units, and the units can be divided and grouped in specific ways, and we can visualize that, and we can regroup and reorganize it. And once you start to think in that way, which is what the Montessori materials help you do, math becomes much more fun and it really unlocks. And you can use those methods at home, even if your kid is in a traditional school and you're helping them out. As always, at the Power Hour, everything comes back to Pixar movies, or perhaps Disney Pixar. And in this case, it's Incredibles 2, Mr. Incredible trying to teach his son new math. When did they change math? Well, it happened. You're probably a little bit confused when they bring that homework home. If your kids are in a regular school, doesn't mean you can't pull out these materials that we're going to show you and help bridge the gap if they're needing that additional instruction. Now, that being said, as you pointed out, a lot of schools today are going to be using these concrete materials as well. So this is a great reinforcement.
But most don't use the Montessori materials.
Well, that's
and
true.
There is something really amazing about these materials in particular that will help you to teach your child at home to overcome that math anxiety that maybe you were carrying over from the earlier years of when you were trying to engage with math and maybe were feeling unsuccessful. Get ready to start learning a different way of teaching math, because the Montessori method is scientifically proven, it's time tested, and it also will help you to feel more comfortable. And the time to do that is now. So this is the whole reason for this whole little live that we're doing here on Power Hour. We want you, even before your child is ready, to learn math. And so hopefully some of you out there will have little ones who, aren't ready for these big materials quite yet. But now is the time to make them. Now is the time for you to get comfortable understanding them, because what you're going to have to do, and I can't remember exactly how I phrased this the other day, but I said, what you're going to have to do is, we talk about the concept of reparenting ourselves. I don't know if you've heard that concept, but sometimes if you were taught, you were taught or parented a certain way and you want to do it a different way for your own kids, you're going to have to relearn that same thing yourself. You're going to have to adopt new strategies for yourself before you can teach your child or you can parent your child a different way. So it's kind of like there's a concept called deschooling, and this is often used in the homeschool community when we talk about how children might be transitioning from a regular classroom into homeschooling. And so it's kind of like taking that concept except with yourself. So you were once schooled in a certain way and developed these anxieties around math, and now you're going to have to re-school yourself on a different way so that by the time your child is ready, you will feel confident doing it.
Yeah, and that's right. And you will be able to do this. Yeah. Okay, we had a comment here before we go on. Ted Lee Ever After says that I feel like I jumped right into abstract math and was missing the concrete experience. I'm teaching myself again alongside her child.
Good.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were saying.
That is what we want.
Yeah, that is perfect. I mean, I know that when I because I didn't go to Montessori school. And I didn't have any experience with these materials. I was taught in a very traditional way, and I didn't really ever understand math. And so when it came time to we were homeschooling our kids, and using those materials was my first experience really with them. And then later when we wrote the curriculum, digging deep into them. And it was just phenomenal. And so I had that exact same experience, Teddy, and I think any of you and every one of you out there can have that, where you start to relearn so much, and the magic of those concrete materials that help you go from that confusing abstraction to literalizing the world, and then taking that and going into the abstract again. It's just an amazing journey that Montessori materials really can help. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you are ready to get started learning math for your child, I would just say that just like Teddy Ever After, thank you for commenting. You can too use our complete curriculum where we will give you full 1 through 6 levels of Montessori math lessons and teach you how to use these materials at home. All right. But first, is there a special friend here with us?
No, there's not.
What?
No, he said he wasn't showing up today.
What?
He refused.
You're kidding.
That's right. I heard it was all about math, and well, I just don't like math.
What?
It makes me scared.
Oh, Mr. Bunny.
Yeah.
But math can be so fun.
Yeah, I don't believe you. Every time I look at numbers, I just get all confused.
Oh, well, Mr. Bunny, have you ever tried Montessori math?
Is that spicy?
Spicy. It's not spicy.
Oh, okay, I don't like spicy food.
Well,
Besides, I don't even think math is relevant to me. I don't even understand why I should learn math. I mean, why do we need it? Sure, it's nice to be able to say I've got 5 carrots, but I just need enough carrots to eat until I'm not hungry anymore.
oh, well, math is important for everyone, Mr. Bunny.
I know.
Yeah, it helps us to understand our world better, and it's also really good for our brains.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes I feel like my brain is stuffing.
Mr. Bunny.
Well, actually, I guess I would love to do some kinds of is measurement math?
Measurement is math.
Wow, I guess I would really like to learn how to do that. You know, I've always wanted to know how long my ears are.
Oh, yes, your ears are very long.
Yeah. Did you know that some rabbits' ears can be very, very long?
No,
Yeah.
how long can they get?
30, they can get up to 32 or 33 inches. But did you know they can never get to 36 inches?
What? Why not?
Well, then they would be a yard. Instead of ears, they'd be a yard.
Was that a math joke, Mr. Bunny?
Well, it might be.
Well, Mr. Bunny, we want to thank you for bringing some levity to this is good for all, even little rabbits.
Oh, yes, thank you. Bye.
Well, friends, when you find yourself just staring at a website full of Montessori math materials, wondering, where do I even begin? What math materials do I even need? I cannot even tell you how many people DM me this question all the time or email me this question, which math materials to begin with. Here is exactly what you're going to do. You're going to focus on 3, just these 3 first math materials, and then move on to other math materials. And you don't have to wait until your child is in that sensitive period for math, ages 4 to 5, 5 and a half.
Totally.
You can start right now, and you should start right now, because as you play with the materials, this is how you are going to gain confidence for teaching those math lessons later. So don't wait. If you have been thinking, when should I purchase that complete curriculum in order to find the math lessons and learn how to teach my child, what age should my child to be? there really isn't a too soon if you are looking to build your confidence. So let's bring out that very first math material, which is the golden beads.
The golden beads.
So I have some up here behind you. Would you grab that?
I will. Now we're hearing that the audio might be cutting out for us. Would you check your plug?
Yeah, I'll check my plug. I seem to be plugged in, and my little microphone is...
Microphoning.
It's doing its thing.
Well, let us know if you continue to have trouble. All right. We have... Ooh, this is a basket full of beads. Now, would we like to...
Now, let's see. Here, if we can do this.
All right.
Just kind of hold these in my hand. So,
Yeah. We'll do a top down.
are you going to do a top down for YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so here's what I have in my little basket of beads. It's actually kind of messy. Doesn't matter. These are examples of the Montessori beads. So in the example we're sharing today, we're talking about the golden beads. So I have 2 sets here, both that I DIY'd and was really, really fun to make. So I have this first set, looks like this. And I'm just going to get some of these out. I'm going to get out some of those 10 bars so that we can see what they look like. They're kind of bendy and, you know, not perfect. Who cares? They're for us. And they're going to teach our children place value.
Well, they feel so good in your hand, too.
Yeah.
They
There's
are
100
cool and smooth.
And we also have some paper versions of these 100 squares. All right. And 1,000 cubes here. Right.
Yeah, so here you're seeing kind of a range, right? You can, and actually I'm going to go ahead and grab this one. So this is a pony beads version, and we made it with speaker wire and pony bead, or you did the work.
Well,
a long time ago. So
David participated. It was when I was teaching kindergarten, right? Actually, I was teaching 2nd grade at the time that I made these, not even kindergarten yet. And I came home and was thinking I want to make myself a set of golden beads. So I went to a Montessori school in person and I studied their materials and I drew them. And then I came home and we talked about how to actually make them. And my mother gave me this old photocopy set of 100 squares and 1,000 cubes, and I just made them out of paper and laminated them on cardstock, and chose, the beads that we found at the hobby store were these kind of peachy pony beads.
couldn't
And I'll
find
tell you,
golden at the time.
well, actually, I'm sure that there were some golden. I'm just sure that they weren't
they were
very...
probably too yellow.
No, I remember that there were some that were kind of gold colored, but they came in a very tiny package, and I knew that I needed lots of these beads, and they were also like 2 or 3 times the cost. Yeah, so it wasn't something that I found at my hobby store back then. So, but I did find an alternate color, and I went with peach. And there were lots of peach beads in that pony bead set. So I chose peach, and then we came home and we matched. We found some cardstock to match that peach color for the 100 squares and the 1,000 cubes.
So the point of that story is, to me, is that the materials are in service of the learning. The materials are not precious in and of themselves. So here you have 3 variations. You have the version that you made 20-something years ago.
The pony beads.
And a card version. You have this more beautiful version that you made just a few years ago with a firmer wire, and there were these golden beads. They're really pretty. Also handmade, much more true to the kind you might buy in terms of like the color.
They have a nicer aesthetic because they're made out of glass.
They're smooth and cool.
They're weighted,
and the color is
they feel
beautiful.
better.
But they won't do the same
Honestly,
thing.
They're not as durable as the original set.
No, and because these are old. They've been around a long time and been used by a lot of kids, not just our own. But they do the same thing. Here is another version. These are the versions that we supply in our packets. When we every month we do a new packet of lessons with a lesson plan. And this month we're doing coil, and last month we did wheel. Here's giant.
Yeah, and we published a bigger version of these,
Yeah.
I think, in Giant.
And so we always give printable copies of stuff if we can, right? And they're not as beautiful as these or these.
You actually don't have to have DIY'd a full set to get started learning how to use the golden beads.
That's right. So the point is that you can do this on your own pretty simply and start using the philosophy, the theory, the lessons. It's not the material that has the magic. It is your presentation of it. It's the philosophy and the theory. And that's why you can DIY so many of these materials successfully, including the first of our three, the golden beads.
Yeah, so golden beads are found inside our math curriculum. Do you remember where exactly they are?
They're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're used. I think that we start using them in level 3.
Yeah, maybe so.
Could be wrong. It's either level 2 or level 3.
Around most times, if you're level 3 in our curriculum, your child is probably about 4 or 5, which is just what we were saying earlier. That's like where you're at the sensitive period. Now, there are plenty of great math lessons before that are included in levels 1 and 2, but you're going to work up to using these golden beads in level 3.
Yeah, you actually start using the golden beads a little bit earlier because, as we introduce other concepts, you start to introduce these beads. It's when you start to introduce, here it is, like in level 2, I think is when we start really introducing these golden beads.
Yeah, we have exchanging units, exchanging for 1,000, fair exchange game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So they're wonderful. I will tell you that a lot of parents will make themselves a set of golden beads or buy a set, whatever appeals to you.
If you want to buy one, that's totally fine too.
Or use our paper set, and they will discover that as they work through the math problems, so we're going to be using these for base 10 place values. So an example of a kind of problem that a 4 or 5-year-old might be doing with these golden beads is like 4,562 plus 2,784, right? That's an example of a kind of problem that a child who's not even in kindergarten will be starting to do with these beads. Montessori has a reputation, I think, of being a little bit academic in that way. I mean, people either think that like the kids are just doing what they want all day, or they're like constantly doing advanced math. Yeah. And it is amazing when you see what Montessori kids can do with these beads. Like they can, they're going to be multiplying 4-digit numbers by a single digit and sometimes even a double-digit number much faster than you think.
Oh, yeah.
So there's like so many lessons that just go along with these golden beads. And if you were on the fence about whether you should have one or not, like it is a no-brainer. You need a set of these. Whether you're going to be homeschooling long-term or not, having a set of these at home is going to be invaluable to you. They were invaluable to me when I taught in the classroom. Eventually, your child is, even if you did not take the Montessori approach from the beginning. Some people come to us a little bit later and say, is it too late? It's not.
No.
These materials are going to carry you through the elementary years. And you as an adult will probably, if you were one of those people who were kind of scared of math or scared of teaching math or not really sure if you're understanding fully the concept, like what actually does happen, in multiplication, what does that, if you just can't visually see it in your mind, this will allow you to visually see what exactly is happening during that process. Or like many of us learn subtraction with borrowing and we just learn, now I'm going to put a slash over that number, make it into 10, and then subtract one number from it. But you're not really seeing what that borrowing looks like. And the golden beads are going to allow you to see the borrowing, to see the carrying, and to see, the multiplication. When we do multiplication with the golden beads, it's actually dead simple. People are really overthinking multiplication. So, for example, here's a number, 3,962.
Yeah.
All right, we want to multiply that by 3. What do most of us think about when we think about how to do that in traditional education abstractly?
Get my
We think-
calculator.
No. Okay, we don't use calculators in elementary school, David. So
Well, that's what I would think.
you're going to write the number down.
Yeah, you're gonna write it
right?
down,
You're
and
going
you're
to
gonna
put a little X,
Yeah,
and
then
you
you're gonna
draw
write
a
the other
line.
number. Right.
Right, and so you've got your
You're going to multiply each of the
multiplicand,
numbers.
your multiplier, and each number you're going to say, you know,
times
3
1 is
times
3,
this,
3
and
times
this,
3
and 3
is
times
9.
this. And then as you do that, you're like carrying
Yeah.
over because you're doing addition with it as well. And it's very abstract, and you're not really thinking what it looks like visually. But with these golden beads, here is all you do. What did we say? Like, I can't even remember what number I made up, like 3,962, right? So you're going to lay out 3,000s in visual form,
Oh,
3,000s, and then what
Maybe
did I
that's
say?
up.
900. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, so
5,
there's 3,000.
6, 7, 8, 9. And we'll just tuck these away so that they're not in our way. Do you have the little red basket over there?
I got that little red basket right here.
All right, we'll just put those away. And we'll just show real fast what we're doing here. Okay, so David is showing you here on our rug and a top down that we've got 3,000s, and we're going to lay those out just so we can see them. And we've got 9 of these 100 squares, and you know, we can lay those out if we want, you know, but we don't have to. And then what we're going to do is, what did I say? We needed 660, so I've got 6 tenths.
Okay.
So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 units, 2 ones. All right. So here's like visually just dropping it on a rug, you know, what that looks like. So we're going to lay it out place value style for our child. And so we're going to collect our thousands. We know that those go all the way over to the left. And all of our hundreds come next. You know, stack them up, put them right there. And then we've got 6 tens, and we've got 2 units. And I hope our top down is showing this nicely. So I've got thousands, hundreds, tens, and units all nicely laid out. And all we have to do the multiplication is lay this set out 3 times. So we would do this here. We're going to do it again underneath, do it again underneath, and then we're just going to add them.
Yeah, then you're going to collect them.
And it's, if you understand how to do golden bead addition, then multiplication is no big deal. It's like so easy. And I think that even I had this epiphany when I started working with these Montessori materials, even after being in a Montessori school, growing up in a Montessori community, still after attending public education math for so long, once I came back to those Montessori materials when I was teaching kids at school and then teaching our kids at home, and I started teaching multiplication with them, I was like, why is anyone ever scared of multiplication? Because it's literally like you're just laying the same thing out several times on a rug. It's just addition. And children will have this epiphany as well. Hi there, Lucy. Oh, good. She says she loves her golden beads.
Nope, we haven't done the stamp game yet.
No, we're about to do the stamp game. So once you have this beautiful layout and you realize like, oh, so these basic operations, you know, you don't have to teach them abstractly with paper and try and explain to your child why they have to mark out that number and put another number there instead. Like that doesn't make any sense. But when you are adding and you're like, oh, hey, I actually had these 3 left over, you know, and now I'm going to exchange them, put them into the next place value. It's very concrete and very literal. So it makes a lot of sense and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do all kinds of really fun stuff. Let's grab that giant book. So, of course, there are the classic lessons, but then a lot of the fun comes from the applied. So just as an example, in our Constellation pack from, I can't remember when we did this, last summer, I think, we did an activity on tall buildings. And you would use the golden beads to represent these. Now, this was a huge hit on our community.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if we have anybody in the community here, but we saw people making to scale versions of these things in their kids' rooms for a long time. And this is something that you would do with the golden beads. It brings it to life, and it combines all kinds of other concepts too, like architecture and where are these buildings, and let's look at a map and what do they look like, and it's just a lot of fun. And those golden beads make it so practical and literal. They're just amazing. So make yourself a set.
Yeah, so much
Okay.
fun. All right, stamp game.
Now, real quick, Annabelle says she's excited to be live
love it.
today. I love your encouragement to DIY. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Absolutely. There are no gatekeepers allowed. That's our rule. Like, you have the power to use Montessori in your home. It is for everybody, everywhere. And we believe that so firmly that we will never not say, make your own materials. The magic is in the thinking and in the lessons and in the philosophy.
That's right. And it's in the teaching. It's in those moments where your child is manipulating something and they don't get it, and then just that aha moment happens. It's so magical. And that happens with Montessori, I think, a lot easier than with traditional teaching methods, because we do the concrete first. They get the concept first, and then it's not like we never teach math on paper. That is actually part of it. We move them from the concrete materials to the abstract.
Yeah, they're going from a
materials.
sensorial experience to a concrete representation of that to the abstract on paper or in their mind. And that's the progression. And what a lot of places do is they don't pay any attention to the sensorial stage. They skip the concrete stage and they go right to abstract. And if you're behind, then you're just like not good at math.
Right.
That is not how to do it.
That's
Okay.
right. All right, so stamps. The stamp game is, oh my gosh, it really, really speaks to me personally. Like, I love the golden beads, and yes, we really have to start there, because the next step is to graduate our children a little further into their abstract mind. And so we start with those golden beads because they are countable. You know, you can literally count, the number of beads that is on a 10 bar and count it up to 10, and you can visually see that it is 10, right?
Yep. Or if you're using the colored beads, the similar concept, right? You're visually representing it.
That is right. But where do we go from here? How do we take the mind from this concrete state of being where we're literally looking at 10 and we're saying, okay, I'm visualizing this is what 10 looks like and feels like in my hand, and I can count it whenever I get confused. How do we take them from there to mentally conceiving of 10 as its own grouping? All right. And Maria Montessori had a brilliant idea for this. As far as I know, it is a Montessori complete original material. What she did was, I think she had a whole bunch of actual postage stamps in her in the classroom. Yeah, and also I'm sure she had like little wooden blocks and things as well, as she was experimenting, taking kids on to that next stage in abstraction. And so what we have here today is you can imagine that these are like little postage stamps. So we've got, this is going to represent your one bead. So you're taking your child and you're like, okay, this is the golden bead, that's the one bead, and this is the one bead that's represented in our little stamp. And then you've got the 10 stamp, and this represents the 10 bar. And so you're saying these are the same thing, right?
Yeah, so you're creating a relationship between the two.
Right. And then you've got your red 100 square, and you're saying these are the same thing. We're going to visualize this when we see this little red square.
That's
okay? Right. And I know maybe it seems a little confusing at first, but it's so brilliant. And if your child is worked with the golden beads for some time and really understands it, they're going to get this. They're going to be ready and excited for this next stage. And finally, we have our 1,000 stamp. And this represents the 1,000 cube. And you notice we've been using paper cubes this whole time and showing you the paper cube version. As a classroom teacher, I didn't have the paper. I didn't have the wooden block versions of the golden beads because I was DIYing this. I made one real cube out of the beads. And then I just said, like, these paper cubes represent this one real cube.
So we had one, I remember that, and I can't find that block right now, but right. So there was one physical one so that the child could really see all the beads or visualize it much more concretely. And then from there to the paper version, because it'd take a lot of work to make as many golden 1,000 cubes as you would need.
Yes, it would. Now, our members have been experimenting with that. I know some of you are watching them.
I know. And it's a good idea, too. I think, is this the one where they've been...
Actually, it's with the hundreds.
Oh, okay.
Hundreds, yeah.
Oh, you're right.
So our members have been making some 3D versions of the 1,000 cubes to represent it. So, and all it is, it's such an easy DIY, is you take the 100 squares and you're going to tape them together to make a cube.
Yep.
And if you don't cut them out first and you cut them out in the right way, and then you just fold them up into a cube. And it's just so easy and so much fun. And it's been great seeing them do that. But you don't have to. I actually have never met a child who wasn't able to make that abstract leap. Now, if you're working with a certain special needs population, maybe that's not the case, but I can say for most kids, we're talking about like 90% at least of kids who use these beads, they will be able to make that abstract leap with the paper versions if they're ready for it. And we're not talking about our 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds. We're talking about 4s and 5s and 6s. Right?
That's right.
And if your child is a young 4 and they still aren't quite ready for that, you're just going to wait another 6 months and then introduce it, and then they'll be able to make that abstract leap. All right, so the stamps are beautiful and brilliant. You may have noticed that, well, I'll just show you. Just pick this up and kind of show you here.
Top down too if you want.
No, you don't need to.
Okay.
So I'll just show you here, we've got our units and our 10s and our 100s and our 1000s, and maybe this is looking reversed on the screen, but it actually goes from my left to my right, just exactly the way it would with the problem that you were writing it down, if you're writing the number down. And you'll notice that these two are the same color, and these two are colored differently. And this is because we want our children to start to associate the color with the place value. And so the ones place and the thousands place and the millions place and the billions place, you just keep going. Those and the 10, those are all going to be green, right? And anything that is like a 10 is going to be blue. Anything that's like 100, place value is going to be in the hundreds. And so, for example, it would go from your units, 10s, 100s, thousands. What comes next?
10,000.
10,000s. So that would be blue. All right. How about 100,000s? That would be red. And then what do you get after 100,000? Million. And millions is going to be green. 10 millions is going to be blue. 100 millions is going to be red. And then what comes after 100 million?
A billion?
1 billion is going to be green. Okay, so you're teaching your child the progression, and this is going to make a lot of sense as you progress through the Montessori materials, as we will show you with the next material that takes it a further in abstraction today.
Yeah, so this is a caveat to the materials aren't magic, but there are some rules built into the materials that are important, so that you can DIY them, you can make them from whatever you want, whatever's best for you. But following this color coding scheme is important. Not only does it help the child make the connection between this 10 bar and this blue square, it's going to be essential as you continue your Montessori math over the next several years.
Now, you know that song, anything you can do, I can do better?
Sure.
I can do anything better than you.
Yeah.
What is that from?
Annie, get your gun.
No, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. That's how I feel about like the stamp game and the golden beads.
Oh, yes.
Because which one is better? Like, you got to start with the golden beads, but actually the stamp game can do it better. It can do it faster. It can, it takes you further into abstraction, but you're basically doing the same stuff with it.
But that's the point, right?
It is. It's the point. It's the repetition experienced math educators will tell you repetition in math is really crucial for your child. They've got to experience the same thing again and again. And in the Montessori math, it's already built into the materials. They're going to do it with the golden beads. They're going to do it with stamp game. They're going to do it with the bead frame, which we'll show you in a minute. And then they're going to continue to do it through multiple different materials. They're going to do it through these colored beads. They're going to do it through the checkerboard, which is behind David. You know, I don't know. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see it. They're going to do it in, you know, in all different ways. They're going to do it through the test tube division. I don't know if you want to grab that down there and give them like a very tiny preview. This is probably one of the scariest and most exciting materials in the elementary curriculum. But can you see, like, you're gonna take the concept of these colors, and then as you progress through the Montessori curriculum, we're gonna use those same colors. And so what you're doing with the stamp game is you are transitioning your child into that abstraction. H. Smith says, is that from a commercial with Mia Hamm and Michael Jordan?
They did use that in an old commercial. It's, I think, from the musical Annie Get Your Gun, though.
Yeah.
But I think they did. I do remember that commercial as well.
It's so fun. I love that song. I love that song. And I love singing it with our kids because it's like a back and forth competition song. But that is how I feel about these math materials.
Yeah.
It's like, which one? And people ask me, like, which one should I get? And I'm like, well, like, you got to have both of these because they're like in a push and pull. And the magic with the stamps, I'll tell you, is that they are faster. So laying out the golden beads eventually is going to be laborious for your child because if their mind is moving into the abstract knowledge, they're going to be like, why do I have to keep counting
now
all
I've got to
these
set out
units?
Another 3,900, blah, blah, blah.
And each time you're like, okay, here's another, now I've got to gather another set of 10 bars. And, you know, now I've got this massive layout on the rug because our numbers are just getting bigger. And so with the stamp game, we take that quantity and we're just going to condense it down to these tiny little stamps. And your child is just going to be able to manipulate it right there on the tabletop or on the floor, but the layout is going to be smaller and they're just making that transition into abstraction.
Yeah, let's show them what the number, I think the last time we did 3,000.
Okay.
Isn't that right? 3,000, maybe people out there can remember. I think it was 3,900 and 62. That's what I remember.
All right. So David's getting out 3,000 stamps, and I'm getting out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you're on YouTube, you're watching the top down. If you're on Instagram, I can pan down so you can see what we're doing. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We'll see if you guys can see what I'm doing here a little bit. Yeah. Okay. All right. So
you remember what it looked like before with the beads?
Right.
Just big.
It was a big layout, right? We had 9,000 paper versions of the cubes, and we had 3,000, then we had 9 stacked up versions.
So you can imagine those cubes, you know, if they were stacked, it'd be a big stack of cubes, right?
Yeah. But you can see like this, you know, the only thing with this is that I get fiddly about like making sure all the 10s are going the right way. You don't have to, you know, some kids, once they make that abstract link, they would be perfectly fine. They actually might not really care about like whether the numbers are going the right way or not. Depends on if you have a perfectionist kid or not. All right, so that's kind of what they look like. And then you're going to be doing the same Montessori activities with these stamps that you do with the golden beads, all right? But it's going to be faster, and your kid is going to be less frustrated, you know, with the big layout. Now we're condensing it. It's getting exciting. We're getting the color coding in, and they're going to be able to go faster because it's a lot easier to like scoop these things up and then exchange them, you know. So for example, I've got 10 hundreds here, but if I have 900s here, but if I had 10 hundreds, I can easily just grab them up in my hand and exchange them for one of the 1,000 stamps. So,
And even though you're doing the same, this goes to this, like, this is a much more abstract representation, right? So by repeating those lessons, you're helping draw their mind to how this and this are the same thing. And then eventually how this, the number 100 without the tile around it, is the same thing as well.
Right.
And so you're walking them through something that's very hard, but going through that process, it's going to be a lot of fun for them, and it's going to give them a confidence and a joy.
that's right. Well, guess what friend is coming up next? It's the bead frame. I love the bead frame. Now, remember the mantra we have here. Anything you can do, I can do better. The bead frame says, hey, stamps, I see you looking all concrete there. Now let's do some mental math. So this is what a large bead frame looks like in Montessori.
Now, this is an oldie. You've had this one a long time.
I actually used this one in elementary school. So it's fragile, and the beads are, like, some of the beads are a little bit cracked. I think it's so special to have this legacy material. You can DIY this as well.
you can if
Before
you're
I
crafty.
was given this one, I made them out of
A picture frame, maybe?
picture frames.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just took some wire,
Yeah.
or actually I just used some really firm string.
Yeah,
I
I
strung them
remember that.
around, I hot glued them down to the edges of the picture frame, and I just strung on the beads.
And the colors are important.
The colors are important. You'll notice, again, just like with our green unit stamps, these unit beads are green as well. So we're carrying the colors along. And I'll just show you why this becomes more abstract. So I'll just set that right here for you. So to make the same number, we had 3,000s. I'll just bring my 3,000s over. We had 900s. I'll just bring those over. We had, do you remember, 2 10s?
6.
Sorry,
I
6
think
10s.
it was.
So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 10s, and then 2 units, right? And so this is what it looks like. The same thing that we showed you in Golden Bead version and in the stamp version. This is what it looks like on the bead frame. All right, it's so it takes even less space. It's smaller. It's still countable. But as we manipulate the numbers and add and do our exchanging, we're going to have to keep a lot more in our heads.
That's right.
You know, so for example, what if we were going to add, what if we were going to say 3,962 plus 300s,
Right.
right? So you notice we've only got 100 over here. So we're going to end up having to exchange in order to add that extra 100, and we're going to have to do some mental math in order.
Yeah, you're going to have to
do it.
remember
Yeah.
that 1, and you still owe 2 more. And
Yeah. So I'll demonstrate this for you real fast, and don't let it intimidate you, but just this shows you what kind of mental engagement you're going through. So I'm going to say I need 3 more to add 3 more hundreds, right? So here I've got 100, and now I've got 10 over here. So I'm going to keep that in my head. I've got 10, and I'm exchanging it for
1,000.
1,000 because
10 100s.
10 100s is 1,000. So I'm just adding my 1,000 over here. Now I've still got 2 more hundreds to add, and now they're here, and I can add them. 1 and 2 more, and now this is our new answer. And our new answer is 4,262. All right, and all we did was we added 300. But you can see that in that exchange process, I had to really keep it in my head. And with the stamps and the golden beads, you're physically seeing yourself doing that exchanging. But here, you're exchanging with a bead and you're keeping in mind, okay, I still need to add that other 200, and I can't see it. So I'm going to add it in my head and know that it's there, make my exchange, and then bring them over. And so we're taking your child from seeing the very most concrete version of math to more abstract with the stamp game to even further in abstraction with the beads frame. And then what is the step after that? You guys know it. It's on paper, right?
Yep.
It's doing it completely mentally.
And this is where you start to get into word problems and
Well, you can do word problems
that's
all
true.
along.
You are
yeah,
right.
you don't need to wait until you've done the golden beads and the stamp game and the bead frame to do word problems.
That's
But you're right that like thinking about the calculation mentally, thinking about that, we're making the transition into mental math.
Yeah, so you're in the kitchen and you have 4 guests and everybody gets 2 cookies. How many cookies? Well, this is multiplication, 2 times 4. You could grab your beads or your whatever, but you're working up to the point where the child is keeping these numbers in her head and then is saying 2 times 4, 2 sets of 4 is 8. Or whatever the math problem might be.
That's right.
Yeah, and this is where all the other things are coming in as well. Numeracy, fluency with operations, other sorts of concepts are flowing together. But these 3 materials are going to really be critical to unlocking that. And you can do so many fun things. Okay, we had a question here. Millie asked, what are you using as a mat? Is it felt? It is not felt. It is just cotton.
Yeah, this is a large blue mat that I got from Montessori Services. And I didn't pick it out because of the color. I just actually went to their super sale day in Petaluma. I think they're in Petaluma.
Yeah, here in the Bay Area.
Or maybe they're in Santa Rosa. One or the other.
Just by happenstance.
By happenstance, I live close and I heard that they were having like a seconds day, and so somewhere on this rug it's like there's I don't know, probably a loose thread or something, and so I just picked it up. But honestly,
We've bought rugs at IKEA.
Even though it makes, I think, it a little bit hard sometimes when we do video to show up with the contrast between the materials. I actually really love having a dark color underneath these math materials, especially. Honestly, it makes the cards pop too. It's a great color. When you're looking for mats, when we had very little children, we didn't live near Montessori Services, and if you order from their website, it is more expensive. I do think it's worth it if you're just purchasing 1 or 2 really beautiful solid mats. So definitely check them out. They're a great, very small company, all right, and really good people, sweet people, having met their office administrative staff. Like, they're really good people. So do support them, but our mats, when our kids were little, were mostly from IKEA. You also can use, don't laugh at me, bath towels. All right, I honestly would rather see you use just a bath towel. So I used to go shopping for mats at Target when our kids were little, and what I was looking for was solid colored rugs, and you'll find a lot of them in the bath mat section. It's maybe a place that you hadn't been thinking of buying a Montessori mat from.
They're also real helpful if you're going to do math in the bath.
They're not. No one does that.
Somebody does it.
Okay. So yeah, that is where I got it from. It's a dark, beautiful royal blue color. I don't know if they're selling them anymore. It's been a while. But solid colors really are the best.
Yeah, you're trying to give a defined, beautiful space. Like, it's a part of the prepared environment.
Yeah, so I know that those kind of cream colored mats that you see in most Montessori Instagram photos and videos
very
that
popular,
people have,
they're-
like, they're popular and they're classic. I mean, Montessori schools have them and they're beautiful, but honestly, like, you're just looking for something that is not distracting to your child and defines the area. And so a colored bath mat will do it.
But I like this surface she was asking about, whether it was felt, which I think probably makes sense because the camera didn't really.
Felt would do it too.
It would be great.
Big piece of
what
felt.
I like about this, though, is like felt, it has some grip. And so when you set your cards and materials down
just
on it,
slide around.
Right. They kind of stick in place, which is really great.
Do we have any other questions out there right now?
Yeah, we have a couple others. Annabelle. Gosh, sorry guys, I got getting over the flu. She says her son has still not mastered recognition of numbers. For example, he will say 8 and 2 instead of 28 or 82.
Okay.
He can count continuously, though. Should I go ahead with the activity proposed for Coil? I'm assuming you mean the snake game.
Yeah. The snake game is so much fun. You're going to love it, Annabelle.
Now, you don't use the golden bead, although, yeah, you will use the golden beads for the snake game, but you also use your colored beads. So if you're watching along, you'd want both. It's a classic. What would you tell her? I would say yes.
I guess I would say if you have introduced the colored beads at all to your child and they're kind of aware that they can be used for quantities, you definitely can go ahead into the
Because I think
snake
inverting it is more of a numeracy rather than an operational.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So these red and blue rods behind us, this material is often used for making 10. So you can see that like visually this 2 plus the 8 rod would make 10. You can see that visually on your rug. So you can do the same thing with the colored beads. You can see that 2 and 8 will make 10. And also 3 and 7 will make 10, or 1 or 9 will make 10. So if your child is at the stage where they are able to understand the concept of making 10, then they can move on into that snake game, which you can play with those colored beads, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know how it goes if you're in our community.
Are there any other math questions out there? If there are, please comment and let us know. We're happy to stay for extra couple minutes and
we
answer.
have one other. Annabelle again, as she feels like she's jumping all over the place instead of going with the progressive curriculum. Her son wanted to know the number of our house, 325, with beads, though.
Cool.
He was amazed to see it with 3 cubes and the number of beads.
Yes.
That's perfect. Like he's connecting a environmental concept, like the house number. I was thinking like environmental print. This is like the numerical version of that, right?
Yeah.
And then you're literalizing it with the material. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And don't worry about follow the progression, but you follow the child. The child's readiness will come through as you're providing those experiences, and you're doing great.
Yeah. I think it's a beautiful example of how to use these Montessori math materials in real life, in real time.
Yeah.
You want to find the numbers that are around you, and so you're looking at like page numbers, or it would be a great environmental source. Like this one is 14. So like noticing, like we have some really big books up there on that bookcase. How many pages are in there? Let's find out. Wow, there's 134 pages. Let's get out our golden beads and lay out that number. Now let's lay it out with the stamps. Now let's make it with the bead frame. And so you're just making these impressions in your child's mind.
Don't be afraid to get really big. If you got a Bible, a dictionary, something that's a lot of pages, your kid is probably going to be really excited to think, and then to see that visualized is really, really empowering. So don't be afraid to make gigantic numbers. Your kids will probably, especially in that second plane, they get really excited about big works. And that happens to coincide with kind of as they're moving into that developmental readiness for math. So go big. It's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up our live for today. Have fun with these math materials, friends. Please give yourself the gift of becoming more confident with math, and do these math activities for yourself ahead of teaching your child. Like, get so familiar with these golden beads that you can do all 4 operations with them without a sweat, and it will take some practice. And if you're the kind of parent that is willing to practice your Montessori lessons first and put some effort in, then this is a beautiful, beautiful curriculum for you. It's like the perfect fit. And we at Child of the Redwoods feel like parents both need open and go lessons that they can open up and teach now. And we provide that through our thematic packs. And they also need foundational lessons. And those foundational lessons are going to take practice. Yep. So by combining the two, we feel like we are offering a system that is very manageable for you. It's going to be easy for you to know where your child is There's a complete leveling system
Yep.
so that you know the scope and sequence.
You know
don't-
how to combine the thematic lessons with the foundational lessons.
And you don't have to second guess the order because everything is very specifically sequenced out for you.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, friends. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.